Hello everyone, this will be the 12th chapter of The Second Life of the Guardian, written and read by Insect Overlord. This chapter is titled, Yeah, Kidnapping Sucks, but Izuku should be able to walk alone anyways, and has content warnings for mentioned kidnapping. The day after Izuku's appointment, some kid in his class went missing. It was one bad thing after another. Izuku didn't know the kid personally, but had seen him in passing. His quirk gave him wings like a bat. After his disappearance, the moms of Izuku's neighborhood got spooked and kept a closer eye on their kids. Izuku's mom didn't want him to walk alone to school anymore, which sucked because that was usually when he texted Tsukuuchi. She tried to convince him to let her walk him, but Izuku wasn't having it. He had fought too hard for his freedom for it to be stripped away. "Come on, Izuku," his mom pleaded. "You can't walk alone. Just let me go with you. You're too young to get embarrassed at being seen with your parents." That wasn't why he wanted to walk alone, but it was a good excuse. "You're weird, Mom, and I'm a big kid. I can take care of myself." He wouldn't budge on this. His mom seemed to realize she was fighting a losing battle because she sighed and made one last attempt. "How about I call around to find if there's other kids who walk alone, and you can buddy up?" Izuku sighed. It was better than nothing. If he buddied with some other kid, it would be easier to get back to walking alone when everything blew over than if his mom started walking him again. Fine. His mom ended up buddying him with a girl named Shinso Hina, whose single mom didn't have the time to drive her to and from school. It turned out that they lived in the same apartment complex, so they could meet up in the lobby before heading to school. Shinso was a quiet kid, but Izuku was okay with that. It meant she let Izuku talk all he wanted and never told him he was being too much. Did you know baleen whales don't have any teeth? Instead, they have these structures that lets them push water out of their mouths without spilling out the krill. Krill are what whales eat, which is crazy because they're so small and whales are so big. So whales have to eat a lot of krill to be full. Izuku rambled. He loved whales. Shinso just nodded along, almost as engrossed in what Izuku was saying as Izuku was. They were walking home from school together for the first time, and Izuku was enjoying her company more than he thought he would. Shinso may be quiet, but she was kind. She was half a year older than Izuku and had medium-length, wispy purple hair that hung messily over her eyes. Izuku had offered to braid it to get it out of her face, but she refused. She said it was a style choice. She didn't talk much, so when she did, Izuku made sure to listen. They were passing by a park Izuku often visited on his way home when Shinso eyed it with poorly concealed longing. "I've never been there before," she stated. She did that a lot, stating things instead of asking questions. Izuku didn't know why. They really shouldn't go. Their parents would be expecting them back, and if they were too late, they would assume they got kidnapped like their classmate. But Izuku wanted to make his new friend happy. "We can go there if you want, Shinso-san. I visit there all the time on my way home." Shinso turned to look at him with excitement, but her face quickly fell. "No, our parents will want us home." She sighed. "Well, we could just play really quick then. They won't notice one extra minute." Izuku grabbed her hand and led her to the park. They swung on the swings for a bit, then moved on to the slide. Soon enough, Izuku had Shinso try every piece of equipment in the park. They had most definitely exceeded Izuku's estimated 1 minute, but couldn't have gone over 10, so no one would notice. Probably. Whatever, it was worth it to see the smile on Shinso's face. "Thank you, Midoriya-san," she breathed out. Izuku smiled widely. "Of course, Shinso-san. Does that make us friends?" He fiddled with his backpack strap. Shinso looked away embarrassed, but nodded. Izuku pumped his fist. One more friend to add to his list. Marinette wished she could be him. Oh, wait, she was him. Could he even have beef with his counterpart if they were the same person? Whatever. Izuku was stressed. He was standing in front of the doors to his preschool, fiddling with the straps on his backpack. Shinso had already gone inside, Izuku having assured her he would follow in a minute. The day was Wednesday, 2 days since he started walking with Shinso, and 4 days since he got his diagnosis. He had resolved to tell Katsuki about it today, but now that he was at school, he was starting to doubt himself. What if this ruined their friendship? Katsuki had been pretty clear on Friday. He didn't want to play with someone who didn't have a quirk. Izuku shook his head. If Katsuki stopped being friends with him just because he didn't have a lame power like the rest of the snot-nosed brats, they were never really friends to begin with. He tried to ignore the knot in his heart that said otherwise. Izuku took a deep breath to compose himself and pushed the preschool doors open. Izuku-kun, good morning, Ashido-sensei greeted. She scribbled something on a notepad, then opened the baby gate for him. Good morning, Ashido-sensei, Izuku chirped back, the predictable monotony of the greeting bringing back his pleasant mood. He placed his backpack and his jacket in his cubby. Izuku ran cold, which usually meant he wore a coat inside, but the building was heated just enough that he could go without. From there, Izuku went off in search of Mei. He had decided to tell her first, as he expected she would have a much better reaction than his explosive friend. He found her drawing with Shinso, which was strange. Izuku thought she had made a blood oath to only play with the builder's set. Oh, she was drawing flamethrowers. Yeah, that checked out. Mei-chan, Izuku called as he sat down. I've got something to tell you. You too, Shinso-chan. If Shinso was here, he might as well tell them both at once. Mei placed down her red crayon and tilted her head at him. What is it, Izu-chan? Izuku took a deep breath and let it out slowly. I went to the doctor to see what my quirk would be, and they said I might never get one. He said I'm quirkless because of my pinky toe. Shinso scrunched her face. That's stupid. It's just a toe. Mei pointed at Shinso and nodded in agreement. Well, it doesn't matter anyway. You can still be a hero with no quirk. My quirk isn't that useful. I just use it to see really far, Mei said while demonstrating how her eyes turned into crosshatches when she activated zoom. You could do the same thing if you used a camera. Mei then turned to Shinso, expecting her to tell them her quirk too. Izuku was curious. Shinso never talked about it. Usually it was the only thing kids their age talked about. Shinso looked uncomfortable, but spoke up anyway. My quirk is brainwashing. I can control people who talk to me. It's easier when they answer a question, though, she whispered. Izuku perked up. That could be an extremely useful quirk. Izuku shook off the part of him that shuddered at the thought of being used against his will. Shinso was just a kid. She wasn't like Hawkmoth. That's amazing. You could do so much with a quirk like that. All you'd have to do is get the villain to talk to you, and then it's game over, he gushed. Shinso looked startled. You don't think it's scary? My dad says it's a villain's quirk. He said I can't ever use it. Izuku frowned. He was scared, but not of Shinso. His trauma wasn't her fault. Plus, if Shinso never used her quirk, she would never be able to control it. It could activate without her knowledge, and that was dangerous. Shinso's dad should know that. Well, I think your dad's stupid, Izuku stated bluntly, crossing his arms. Quirks can't be villainous. Only villains can. And if you don't ever use your quirk, you'll never learn to control it, he huffed. Besides, I think your quirk would be perfect for a hero, if that's what you want to be. This world puts far too much pressure on kids to become heroes. Izuku knew personally that the profession wasn't all sunshine and rainbows. Still, he knew it was the right thing to say when Shinso brightened. Maybe I will, she whispered breathlessly. Just then, they were called to start their first lessons. Drat, Izuku missed his chance to tell Katsuki. Well, there was always recess. The day crawled by at a snail's pace. Izuku sat in his spot at the table, bouncing his leg and watching the clock. He had breezed through their assignment sheets, so he was left with nothing to occupy his hands. When the bell rang, Izuku was off his seat and out the door like a rocket. He sat on the bench, anxiously awaiting Katsuki's arrival. Izuku's dad must have said something to Katsuki's parents, because after his shutdown Friday, Katsuki had started grabbing Izuku from the bench to play together again. He tended to make Izuku either be a civilian to rescue or sit out of the game, but it was better than nothing. Just then, Izuku noticed Katsuki's angry stomping and turned his head to see his friend. "Ka-chan!" he exclaimed happily, jumping out of his seat. Even if he was anxious, he was still happy to see his friend's adorable scowl. "Come on, nerd," he grumbled, grabbing his hand. "Ka-chan, I have got something to tell you," Izuku stated as he was dragged along. "What?" Katsuki asked gruffly, but also curious. "I went to the quirk doctor, and he told me I'm quirkless. Best to go about this as bluntly as possible, so as not to drag things out." Katsuki stopped walking to stare at Izuku, shocked. What? You mean you won't ever get a quirk? Never? He asked. Izuku shook his head. Probably not. Katsuki huffed, then continued walking. I guess that makes you pretty useless then. Izuku felt like his friend had driven a spike through his heart. That's not true, he yelled. I can still do plenty of stuff. Katsuki didn't respond. Like Izuku was saying something so dumb there was no point in arguing. Before he could try to defend his honor again, they came upon the clearing they usually played in. There was only one other kid there, instead of the two Izuku was used to seeing. The second was the kid who had gone missing. The boy was bent over the dirt, using a stick to write something. I can write my name, he stated proudly. Oh yeah? I can write mine better than you, Katsuki shot back before bending down into the dirt next to him. Izuku decided to join in. Well, I can write better than both of you. Best for him to channel his anger into something productive instead of biting Katsuki like he wanted. That wouldn't be mature. Izuku channeled the skill of his past life as a designer into making the most beautiful kanji. Izuku would show Katsuki he didn't need a quirk to have talents. When he was finished, he sat back and looked over his work with pride. It looked like calligraphy, and he had done it all with a stick and some dirt. He heard Katsuki laugh from beside him. Look, Izuku can be read as Deku. You really are useless, he snickered, pointing down at his beautifully made kanji. Izuku started to tear up. The other boy frowned. That's not very nice, Bakugo-kun. Katsuki turned to him with an angry look. No, it's not mean. He really is useless. He's never going to get a quirk. Never? The boy asked, gaping. Why not? Katsuki crossed his arms and sat back in the dirt. 'Cause he's quirkless, he responded, looking less angry now that the other boy was on his side. That's weird, he agreed. Izuku held back the tears begging to fall and went to play with Mei and Shinso. Katsuki was like Chloe all over again. They had started out as good friends until she decided Marinette was useless for something she couldn't control. Only, instead of his parents' professions, now it was his quirklessness. This concludes Chapter 12 of The Second Life of the Guardian. There was something in this chapter that might have upset people, and so I'm going to spoil it for you so that you won't be upset. So if you don't want a spoiler, stop right now. Okay, I did not gender bend Shinso, okay? He's trans, and we're gonna figure that out later on. Personally, I'm not a fan of gender bending characters. If you do like it, that's fine. But when I posted the chapter on AO3, someone was like, you didn't put that in the tags, and so I just wanted to make a note of it. I did not gender bend him. Don't worry, okay? Anyways, that's it for now. Thank you so much for listening.